Hey, welcome back to Leading in AI by Agentic Age. I'm Jericho, and on this show, I get to talk to some of the most interesting people working in the AI space. And my guest this week is Alberto Esplugas. He's currently the CEO of Futuria Strategy, and Albert has over 30 years of experience in technology, innovation, and digital transformation. If I'm not sure, 12 of which he spent at the headquarters in Seattle of Microsoft and Amazon. He has always is also been a professor at ESADE and recently published a book on NAI that he wrote in collaboration with AI itself. And now he's back in Barcelona running Futuria Strategy, focused on one question on how do companies turn AI into sustainable competitive advantage. And yes, Albert, really glad to have you here. So let's go.
Thank you very much, Jericho. I'm glad to be here, and thank you very much for.
Perfect. So yeah, I would like to start first with a question about yourself, about your journey. I see that you grew up in Barcelona. You studied engineering, and then ended up working at the headquarters of Microsoft and Amazon. How was your experience? How did that jump and leap happen, and how you were able to make this leap?
Yeah, absolutely. I was working with Microsoft since 2003, many years here in Barcelona. Then I managed the Microsoft Innovation Productivity Center, which was located near Barcelona in Manresa. That was for 4 years. Then moved to Madrid with Microsoft too. But I was living here during the weekends in Barcelona, and then taking the train, going to Madrid, spending the whole week, coming back. That was for 2 years. And at some point, you decide, well, option one, we move to Madrid. Option two, we move somewhere else. And I was managing at that time competitive intelligence and competitive strategy for Microsoft. There was an open position in Redmond in Microsoft headquarters in the US. And I decided to apply, did many interviews, and they decided that I was the right person for that role. So 3 months later, me, the rest of my family, and all my stuff were in a boat. Well, my stuff in a boat. I was flying to Seattle and landing in a completely different country, a fantastic area because all that area, Pacific Northwest, is super, super nice. And yeah, I've spent, initially my idea was to spend like 5 years, 6 years, end up spending 12 years there. And with Microsoft, and then I moved to AWS, which, as you know, has a headquarters in Seattle too, so very close to Microsoft. And it's been a fantastic experience. I would do it 100 times again. I've learned professionally, personally, and as a family. So yeah, that was the reason we went to the US. And then at some point I decided to come back, but I know that we'll talk about this later. So yeah, that was my experience.
So your idea was to stay 5 years in the US, but what happened? What made you stay longer?
You know what? I really like the way they work, and I really like the place, and I really like the experience and being in the front line of that company, and then later AWS. You know, it's very different from what you see here in the subsidiary. In the country, you're closer to customers and partners, and that's a good thing about being in the subsidiary. But being at the global level gives you that big picture of the business. And we were super close with all the management and scorecard and competitive intelligence at the worldwide level. It was super exciting. You had a completely different perspective. And I really enjoyed. So the more year after year, time flies. And then what it's been 10 years or 8 years, 9 years. And we really enjoyed. And in fact, if someone offered me the same opportunity at the same time again, I would do it 100 times. Yeah.
Nice. So after almost 20 years across Microsoft and Amazon, working also in different fields such as AI, what would you think would be your key learnings on a personal level and also on a professional level?
Mhm. Well, yeah, AI is the big, big, big wave. I've personally like 5 waves. I always do my presentations and I start saying, hey, I started my career with Apple. And it was the introduction of the PC in the organizations. And I went to the PC, then internet, then mobile, then cloud, and now AI. All those waves, I had the pleasure to lead them in first person and in the front line with different large companies as well, my own companies. But this one by far is the biggest, the hugest, and the more transformative technology human species has ever lived. And it will transform a lot of things. And that's why I'm so excited to be able to surf that wave and then try to contribute with my experience and with, there's a lot of things that are similar from one technology to another one. And you can learn from past. And one thing I always say is, hey, we survived the other four, we will survive this one. So stay calm. This is technology, a profound technology, a big change, but it requires the same approach that we did with the other ones. The only thing is that the transformation will be deeper in organizations and in society and education and everything. So yeah, super excited about what this technology can offer. And as I was mentioning, excited about the learnings that previous technologies gave me, and that will allow me to help companies in this one too.
Hmm. So you mentioned about these 5 ways, no? And right now we have this current wave. What do you think it makes it more transformative, like more deeper than other technologies in the past?
Yeah. Internet was offering information it was democratizing information. That was internet. And suddenly, before internet, information was hard to get. And then suddenly, after the internet, hey, information was available for everyone. And the problem was how you manage that information and how you extract value from that information. Then cloud computing democratized compute. And it was super easy. I remember when I had my own company, an internet service provider, it took us like 3 months to set up all the environment, the hardware, operating system applications. Now I could just go to the cloud and create the same configuration in less than 5 minutes. So that was compute democratization. But now we are democratizing intelligence, and that's something completely different. We were so used that intelligence is something that is unique to the human species. And now suddenly we create some sort of intelligence. Let's say intelligence in italic or in bold or in a different level, some kind of intelligence. But this one, the transformation will be way more profound. It will become the operating system of organizations. All companies will end up running. It will be similar to maybe electricity. In the past, we have all the industry relying on steam machines, and then suddenly the electricity was available for everyone and all the infrastructure. And then you could completely redesign the manufacturing plant because of the electricity. That's exactly the same situation. Now, because of AI, we will be able to completely transform how companies are managed, how knowledge is shared, how innovation happens, how we give value to customers, and how we relate with those customers. And so this will be by far the most profound transformation, because we've never had something that was equivalent, let's say equivalent, under quotes, to human capacity, which means that it will allow us to be a little bit more human. And we can talk about this later too. But the fact that you have a technology that takes care of some basic automation and some process and some project management and calendar management and email management and so on, suddenly we will have more time, and we'll have more time to be more humans and to focus on things that are unique to humans and human capability.
Yeah. So I guess after all these years at Microsoft, Apple, and AWS, working at the center of AI, um, what brought you back to Barcelona, and what made you decide as well to launch, for example, your book as well as Futuria Strategy?
Yeah. So, it also depends a lot on what is the moment in your life. And there's a moment where you're super excited about working in the front line and with huge companies like AWS, like Microsoft. There's another moment in which you appreciate being a little bit closer to your family, to your friends, to the place where you were born. And that's suddenly one morning you wake up and say, you know what, I think it's already time to start thinking about it, because it's not something that happens from day one to day two. So if you want to go there, you have to plan for it. If you want to go back, you have to plan for it. So at some point we decided that it was the right moment. And now what I'm trying here is first work with companies here in Spain, in Catalonia, and helping them with my experience and helping them to navigate this transition to the AI first company world. Um, Also, managing my own company. I've been working with multinationals like 25, 26 years, if I count Apple, Microsoft, and and AWS. It's fantastic working for large companies. I really encourage anyone to experience it. But also at the same time, it's a huge company. At some point, you also want to be the one deciding what to do every day and what is the direction that your company has to take. It's not that you cannot influence the direction of a big company, but you just influence it. You don't change it unless you are the CEO. For 10 years, I was managing my own companies here in Spain too. So I have already that kind of entrepreneur experience. So now I'm combining my entrepreneur spirit with the experience of all those years working with those multinationals and trying to do something that will help companies, that will help people around me and society too, by bringing my experience in artificial intelligence. Then I also decided, everyone has his bucket list. So I have 3 kids, well, 3 children. I planted many trees, I'm sure, throughout my life, but I didn't have any book. So I decided to write a book. And yes, potentially I could have written a normal book like everyone has done in the past. But I decided it would be a fantastic experience to try to write it with AI's help. And that's why I created a hybrid book, which doesn't want to compete with any normal book. I created that book in 3 weeks, and people take more time to write a book. But it's not that it's just AI writing the book. So I decided exactly what were the topics, what was the tone, who was the audience, what were the examples. So it was a process working with AI to create, and that helped me first to understand the whole process and how, because everyone will be amplified by AI. Everyone will use AI to do not just books, but to do presentations, offers to their customers, innovation. So that was a good experience to find what is exactly the limit and how we should work with that technology. And at the same time, it's a fantastic guide, by the way, on how companies should adopt AI. Very simple to understand, very easy to read. And that was because in every single prompt I created to create that book, there was always I want to keep it simple. I want to keep a business language. I always want to create some case studies, examples, real examples of companies here in Spain applying the technology the way I'm talking in that specific chapter. It was a great experience. It also helps, when you've been 12 years outside country, you come back, people remember you. Well, so something to help a lot of people say, "Oh, yeah, I remember that guy. I was working with that guy 12 or 13 or 14 years." And I'm just kidding because, you end up creating a strong relation with a lot of professionals throughout your life. And if you usually work well and they can always count on you, then that will be keep depending on the years and independent of the companies you work.
Nice. So how was writing the process? So you mentioned it was 3 weeks with AI, but how did you actually play with AI? Like, was it more prompting the right prompts to AI so that you can extract the deepest knowledge from AI, or what is the process working with it?
Yeah. So the process was I knew what I wanted to talk about and what were the main topics. So that was something that somehow I was influencing the prompt. Those are the topics I'm more interested. But by the way, tell me if I think that I'm missing something. So I think that we shouldn't be telling AI what to do, but we should be telling them what we want to do and then get their feedback and see what additional topics maybe AI was suggesting that we talk about. That's one. Once we have decided topics, then I went chapter by chapter. And each chapter we have like a shared prompt, more about the tone, the audience, and so on. So it was consistent throughout. I wanted consistency, not chapters that were completely different. But then it was a process of I was creating the prompt, seeing the result, not happy with the result, then changing the prompt, changing the tools, then taking the output of one tool and moving it to another one. So, hey, after all this topic, what would you improve? What are the things that you would suggest I change? It was a process in which I used not one tool, but many different tools. And I was moving the chapter, and chapter by chapter, I was improving the book and creating the book. Once I had it, then I went to the process of, okay, now let's have a look at the whole book and see if the story makes sense, if there's something I'm missing. The story doesn't flow. So I went through different models that could hold the whole book as an input and all the tokens implied in that. And then it was reviewing and improving. And then I was reading everything. So I read every single line that was written by AI. And I was saying, yes, I agree with it. Sometimes I did not completely agree. And instead of changing the prompt, changing the text because I know how to edit a word. So I took Word and I was adding those pages. So it was what is the percentage? I would say that 35% mine and 65% AI, more or less. That will be like an approximative split on how much time each of us spent. But heavily, if I had to write this book, it would take me like, I don't know, 4 months, 5 months, something like this, because you don't have time the whole day to write books. And also because, well, you have to do from a grammatical perspective, from a narrative perspective, from a tone perspective, and so on. And also, I want to make it super easy to understand. And I've talked with many people that have read the book, which is interesting because one thing is writing a book, and then is finding another person and saying, "By the way, I wrote your book. I've read your book, and I love it. And I love it because it's very easy to understand." So I think that what makes this book special is the fact that it's very easy to understand. That it's meant for business people, and that is AI in business language, which is also the tagline for Futuria, which is AI in business language.
Nice. Yeah, for sure I would buy the book and I would like to read it and see how it looks like. Um, so what type of AIs you used for the book? I guess you used like different AIs, LLMs for to write it, maybe using Gemini or more Claude or more
Yeah,
Perplexity.
I did a combination. The first thing is because I didn't want this to be connected to any specific model, because I think that the models are important, but it's not the most important thing for AI. The AI is how you use AI, how we adopt AI in the organization. But yeah, I was using ChatGPT, I was using Anthropic, I was using Perplexity, I was using Gemini, and I was using from one to the other one. And also, once I was satisfied with one chapter, I just copy and paste as as an input for another prompt. Say, look at this chapter, what I'm missing, what would you improve, and so on. So it was co-authoring between me and multiple different models from different companies. So no one can say this book belongs to one specific model. It's a mix of multiple models. And also because this is something I also do right now when I'm working and creating things for with customers. Uh, I end up using multiple models. One of the reasons is because some customers are more on the OpenAI, others are more on ChatGPT, others are more on Copilot, others more on Anthropic. So I need to understand all the different platforms and the difference. And also because some models are great at one thing and others are better for others. So it's always good to use. And also, you end up paying for all of them and you have a number of tokens. So I want to make sure that I use one tokens and I'm not overpaying someone and not using the other one. So it's also a good exercise from an economic perspective.
Good, great. So you also launched Futuria. Can you tell us about a bit about it? What's the main focus? How you are shaping Spanish and Catalan companies when it comes to AI transformation?
Yeah. So the goal of Futuria is to stay at the very top level of the organization. It's more at the strategy, defining the strategy. So a lot of companies have done things with AI, most pilots and things around the company. And it was great. It's a fantastic experimentation phase, and it's something that everyone needs to go through. But at some point, you need to say, okay, now let's think about what should be our strategy. Let's write the strategy. Let's define what is the journey. What are the steps that we need to follow? And there's multiple dimensions. It's not just about technology. It's about technology. It's about people. It's about governance. It's about strategy. It's about training and upskilling the organization, change management. There's so many aspects. That's what I was saying, that AI is 80% business and 20% technology, because it will affect everything in the business and the business has to be involved. The goal of Futuria is not to create a huge company that will do development. We don't do development, and I don't want to do development because I think that this is technology. There's plenty of companies that can do that. I want to be more at the beginning of the process, is uh, doing sessions with the management of the company, with the CEO and CXO, so that everyone is aligning with the vision. Everyone understands what this is about. Everyone can contribute to that strategy definition. Help them define the strategy. Help them define what is the path they should follow and the journey they should follow. And then after that, once they have decided where to go, how to go, and they have like a written journey, then it's other companies that take over, that do the implementation. What we also do is once one company has finished deploying something, we also try to help them identify what worked, what didn't work, what are the KPIs that were affected because of that project, what are the best practice, and how they could get even more value from that deployment. And that's something that I've always observed in every single technology that has been deployed. You always have to resell again what you have already sold. They already adopted that technology, but you need to go to every single department, to marketing guys, to sales, and tell them, you know what, you have this fantastic technology. I know you're using it a little bit. There's way more things you could potentially do with this technology, and help them understand what are the use case, what is the training that they need, what are the best practice, what are the KPIs that will affect it, so that somehow they make sure that they get all the value they should from that technology. So that closes a loop to it. It allows me not to be just at the beginning of the process definition, but also at the end. So I have both sides of the story, and that helps me learn more and more. I always say that when I work with the customers, I help them, but they help me too, because I understand how they work, what are the things that are working, not working. And the more you work with companies, the more you understand exactly when the rubber hits the road, what happens and when it's to happen.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's a good topic, I would say. And when it comes to developing these AI strategies, in the end, SMEs have different structures, different processes. how do you start by structuring this AI strategy? Do you focus on a departmental level, or do you focus more on processes, domains for this AI roadmap? And my follow-up question is, AI strategies, um, in the end, it's more a long-term view, but how do you convince companies to have a sort of a roadmap to also have some short-term or long-term gains?
Yeah. So one thing that we do is we have developed like an evaluation, AI maturity evaluation process or a tool. And they go there, they evaluate themselves. So it's themselves answering the questions and trying to figure out where they think they are and where they think they should be in 1 year from now. Not that we can plan 5 years, but is in 1 year, what is the kind of improvement that you want to do? And then once we have that picture and we understand exactly where they are, we begin to help them in all the different dimensions that I was mentioning. The first one is having a shared vision. And if you don't have a vision, it's kind of hard to lead the transition and the transformation. So having a vision, identifying what are the areas of the business that will be improved or transformed because of AI, and what are the new products, service, or business models that can be created by AI, because it's a transformation and reinvention process, both. Then once you have identified this, you try to match that with the priorities of the business, because maybe the business right now is more in, let's try to save costs because we need to reduce the cost and increase revenue, or maybe we need to expand internationally, or maybe we need to open a new market. You cannot have AI saying the company what are the things they need to do. It's the company that has a specific business strategy, and then AI will help that business strategy and potentially expand that business strategy. So it's a connection between the business strategy and the AI strategy, and how they are connected and how they reinforce each other. Then once you have decided the strategy is okay, now what are the things that we need to do to get there? And one of them is people. And what is the level of usage of this technology within your organization? Do we have a clear policy? Do employees know when to use, not to use? What are the tools that we are adopting? What is the data? Where is the data? Is the data clean? So there's a lot of different aspects. And then what is the governance? There's some dimensions, and it doesn't matter if the company is a small company or is a huge company. The dimensions are exactly the same. Maybe the depth of that transformation and the number of use case will be different, and their ability to invest more or less will depend a little bit what is the kind of use case that we will identify. But they all need to understand where's the value, how to get the value, and what are those transformations. So very similar. Doesn't matter what is the size. Um, that session could be as simple as one session with management defining the vision and the main things they want to do, and that's it. That's a beginning. At least they have a North Star. Or it could be, let's go a little bit deeper. Let me help find what are the different steps and where are you, and help you throughout this process. But it's critical. It's critical because if not, they will continue doing proof of concepts that will drive no value at all, that will be completely disconnected, that will spend money, and that will never scale to something that can be used broadly across the organization, because it's just exercise, which is good. It's good to do experimentation. But at some point, I always tell my customers, most technology, and that's something that Gartner says, all those waves that I was mentioning, since they were launched until they deliver value, there were 7 years. Yeah. With AI, let's say 2022, when ChatGPT was launched, and as Bill Gates was saying, AI woke up. So that's 2022. We're in 2026. So 3 years and a half has passed. We have already done a lot of experimentation. Now is the time to really define a strategy and execute on that strategy, so that this strategy in 3 years been executed, and you get the value of that strategy. If you don't do it right now, someone else will do it, and then you will be out of the market. So that's probably the message that, in a more soft way, we try to land in our customers, saying the time to play has passed. Now is the time to do homework and to do the right things.
Yeah, I agree. I think right now it's very crucial to start thinking about how AI can be a value added to the companies, and how we can make sure that we are not that the company is not left behind in this space, because AI is moving so fast that in the end, not adopting it, it's more expensive or more costly rather than not adopting it. So I agree with that, with that sentence. So yeah, we move on to our last question, which is a question that we would like to ask to all of our guests at the end. It's more on the future. So specifically, where do you think AI will surprise the most? We can say in the next 2 3 years in ways that people are not even thinking about yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one of the ways it will surprise is because it will make us, uh, it will increase human ingenuity. So it's not that I use AI to do what I already know how to do it, but faster, quicker, deeper, and so on, which is fantastic. That's what I call automation and amplification. So you automate things that don't give too much value, but you want to automate and get rid of those. And then you do amplification. So that means using AI to do things faster. I know how to write an email, but AI will do it faster. I know how to create a proposal for a customer, but AI will do it nicer, better, and so on. But what is really exciting is when you go beyond, when you push the envelope, when you do things that you wouldn't be able to do alone, but that with AI's help. That's what I think is. I don't want AI to replace me. I want AI to help me grow. And that's what I think that people are not thinking too much about. They're more thinking about, hey, let's ask ChatGPT or whatever to do the work that I have to do faster and so on. But why don't ask AI to do something that, it's not that it can be, hey, let's do a rocket and go to the moon. Maybe that's too much, but something that you know a little bit how you should do it, but you don't have a full understanding. And then you have AI helping you, teaching you into the process and doing co-innovation with AI. Also, another thing that I'm very excited that will happen within the organizations is that you have people working, but then you have agents that will connect the dots. There's something that people do great. There's always some individual that is fantastic at that, and you do to in front of the coffee machine, and you're talking about something. Hey, by the way, you should talk with Jonathan. You should talk with Laura about this topic because they're doing something similar, and I'm sure that you can do some kind of synergy. Well, at some point, this is going to be an agent that will know everything that everyone does in the organization, and while you're typing something that you're working on some sort of research, you say, hey, Albert, by the way, I see that you're looking at this specific market. You know that this person is also doing something similar. Maybe you should talk with that person. And maybe even the agent will schedule the meeting and say, by the way, you have the meeting tomorrow. So you can talk with that person and see what is the synergy. So that's something that suddenly human ingenuity and the way that we collaborate will evolve because of AI's help. So I'm excited about AI making us more powerful, more clever, more innovative, and helping us grow. Not so excited about AI replacing us. It will be like stupid. So, you have invented, it's like if dinosaurs have invented the meteorite that killed them all. It makes sense. I don't want something to replace me. And also at the same time, I want to decide what I want to give AI or what I want to give. Maybe I love to do something and this is what I really enjoy. Why would I give that task to AI if this is something that I really enjoy? But well, as you related to your question, I would say that what I think will surprise us is how AI will make us better from a ingenuity perspective, and at the same time, it will give us more time to be humans. So we'll be able to be a little bit more humans because of time, and also because all those transactional things will be taken care of by AI. So we'll have more time for relation with customers, more time with relation with employees, more time doing brainstorming or doing creative things that are very unique to human nature.
Perfect. Alberto, thank you so much for your time, for being here. It was really nice to talk to you and learn from you. And and yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Jericho. It was a great conversation, and good luck with this series of podcasts and interviews.
Thank you so much.